The laser dot danced across his chest like a promise of death. 30 seconds. That's all Lena Brooks had. 30 seconds between her tired shift ending and a stranger's execution. She didn't think, didn't calculate. Her body moved before her mind could scream stop, launching a full tray of champagne and lobster bisque across the most expensive suite in the restaurant. The window exploded. Glass rained like diamonds. Screams tore through Manhattan's elite. And when the smoke cleared, Adrian Voss looked at her with eyes colder than winter and whispered words that would destroy everything she knew. You just saved my life. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And hit that like button so I know you're ready for what comes next. Part 1. The thing about surviving is that nobody tells you it's supposed to feel like drowning. Lena Brooks understood this truth in her bones, in the ache of her feet after 12-hour shifts, in the practiced smile she painted on her face every night while serving people who wouldn't remember her name if their lives depended on it. 28 years old, and she'd become a ghost haunting her own existence. Transparent, forgettable, safe. Safe was important. Safe paid the bills. Safe kept her small studio apartment in Queens, kept the lights on, kept her invisible. The Carlisle was not a place for people like Lena. It was a temple for Manhattan's untouchables, politicians, CEOs, the kind of wealth that didn't just open doors but owned the buildings the doors were attached to. She'd worked there for 3 years, moving through its opulent dining room like a shadow, perfecting the art of being present without being seen. Table 12 needs their check, Marcus, the floor manager, hissed as he swept past her. And for the love of God, smile. You look like you're attending a funeral. Maybe I am, Lena thought, but she smiled anyway. The practiced one. The one that said, I'm here to serve you without saying I'm barely here at all. Table 12. She'd been watching them all evening without meaning to. 3 men in suits that cost more than her annual rent, speaking in the low, controlled tones of people accustomed to being obeyed. But it was the 4th man who'd caught her attention, Adrian Voss. She didn't know his name yet, wouldn't learn it until later, after everything had already shattered, but she knew his type. Mid-30s, dark hair swept back with casual precision, a face carved from stone and shadows. He sat with perfect posture, his presence filling the space around him like gravity. Every gesture was controlled, every word measured. Even his silence seemed intentional, a weapon he wielded with surgical precision. He terrified her. Not because he was cruel, she'd seen no evidence of that, but because he was the kind of man who existed in a different universe than hers. A universe where power wasn't borrowed or begged for, but simply possessed, absolute and unquestionable. The kind of man whose enemies wouldn't hesitate. Lena gathered the leather billfold from table 7, processed the credit card for table 9, refilled water glasses at table 3. The rituals of service, the comfortable patterns that kept her mind quiet and her hands busy. 30 minutes until closing. 30 minutes until she could peel off this uniform, ride the subway home, and collapse into bed without dreaming. She approached table 12 with her practiced grace, the kind that made her functionally invisible to the men conducting business in hushed, urgent tones. Gentlemen, can I bring you anything else this evening? Her voice was pleasant, neutral, designed to blend into the background music. One of the men, silver hair, hard eyes, a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw, barely glanced at her. We're fine. But Adrian Voss looked up, really looked. His eyes were gray. Not the soft gray of morning fog, but the gray of steel, of stone, of things that didn't bend or break. They held her for half a second, just long enough for her to feel exposed, seen in a way that made her skin prickle with instinctive alarm. Then he nodded once. Dismissal. Permission to disappear. She turned away, relief flooding through her. See? Safe. Invisible. Just the way she... That's when she saw it. The red dot. It appeared on Adrian Voss's chest like a drop of blood, trembling slightly, dancing with his breathing. Tiny. Precise. Deadly. Time didn't slow down. That's what they always said in movies and books, in the stories people told about moments of crisis. Time slows down. You see everything with crystal clarity. Bullshit. Time fractured. 1 second Lena was standing there, her mind still processing the impossible geometry of that red dot, her brain screaming explanations that didn't make sense. Laser pointer. Someone's stupid prank. A reflection from the next second her body was moving, no thought, no decision, pure animal instinct overriding 3 years of trained deference, a lifetime of making herself small and quiet and safe. She lunged forward, her tray tilting, and with all the force she could muster, she dumped its entire contents directly onto Adrian Voss. Champagne, lobster bisque, Côte de Boeuf in red wine reduction, roasted fingerling potatoes. All of it. Onto a suit that probably cost more than her car. For one crystalline moment, the entire restaurant froze. Adrian Voss stared at her, champagne dripping from his hair, bisque sliding down his chest, his expression so carefully blank it was almost beautiful. The other men at the table jerked back, shock and fury warring on their faces. Marcus was already moving toward them, his face the color of a heart attack. And then the window exploded. The sound came first, a crack like thunder compressed into a single breath. Then glass. So much glass. It blossomed inward in a deadly flower, shards catching the light as they tumbled through the air, each piece a razor reflecting the chandelier's glow. Screams erupted, tables overturned, someone hit the floor, someone else ran for the kitchen. Lena stood frozen, her empty tray still in her hands, watching the chaos bloom around her like a nightmare given form. Her ears rang. Her mind struggled to connect cause and effect, action and consequence. The window, the bullet, the red dot. Oh God, I was right. Strong hands grabbed her shoulders and yanked her down. She hit the floor hard, her knee cracking against marble, pain shooting up her leg. The world became a confusion of sounds, more screaming, Marcus shouting into his phone, the clatter of silverware and shattering plates, someone crying. And above it all, a voice, low, controlled, terrifyingly calm. Stay down. Adrian Voss had her pressed against the floor, his body partially covering hers, his hand on the back of her head. She could feel his heartbeat, steady, unhurried, as if assassination attempts were just another Tuesday evening. More sounds, running feet, shouts, the distant wail of sirens. Don't move, he said again. Not unkind, but absolute. The voice of someone used to being obeyed without question. Lena couldn't move if she wanted to. Her muscles had locked, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps that tasted like fear and champagne and the acrid burn of adrenaline. Time became elastic. Seconds stretched into hours. Or maybe it was only seconds. She couldn't tell anymore. Finally, Adrian shifted, his weight lifting. Slowly, he instructed. There may be glass. There was glass. Everywhere. It crunched under her palms as she pushed herself up, sparkled in her hair, had somehow gotten into her mouth. She spit, tasted blood from where she'd bitten her tongue. The restaurant looked like a war zone. Overturned chairs, shattered plates, a wall painted with wine and bisque that from certain angles looked disturbingly like blood spatter. Guests huddled against the far wall, some still screaming, others eerily silent, shock rendering them mute. Marcus stood near the kitchen entrance, his phone pressed to his ear, his face ashen. The police would be here soon. Questions, reports, evidence collection. But right now, in this breath between crisis and consequence, Adrian Voss turned to Lena. Champagne still dripped from his hair. Bisque stained his shirt. His tie hung askew. He looked like he'd been attacked by a very angry, very expensive buffet. He should have been furious. Should have been demanding her termination, threatening lawsuits, radiating the kind of cold rage that powerful men wielded like clubs. Instead, he looked at her with those steel gray eyes, and something flickered there. Something that might have been respect, or calculation, or both. What's your name? His voice was quiet enough that only she could hear it over the surrounding chaos. Lena. Her voice cracked. She cleared her throat, tried again. Lena Brooks. Lena Brooks. He repeated it like he was memorizing it, like it mattered. How did you know? The red dot. On your chest. I saw... She stopped, realizing how insane it sounded, how impossibly fast everything had happened. I saw it, and I moved. You saw a laser sight in a split second and reacted before anyone else even registered the threat. It wasn't a question. He was assessing her, cataloging, filing information away. You have training? What? No, I'm a waitress. What? What had she done? Destroyed her career? Saved his life? Both? Adrian studied her for another moment, then did something unexpected. He smiled. It was a small thing, barely a movement of his mouth, but it transformed his entire face. Made him look younger, human, dangerous in an entirely different way. You just saved my life, Lena Brooks. He said it simply, a statement of fact, the same tone he might use to comment on the weather. Then he leaned closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne under the champagne and bisque, close enough that his next words were for her alone. And now you're in more danger than you can possibly imagine. Before she could process that, before she could ask what he meant, before she could protest or question or do anything except stand there with glass in her hair and fear in her throat, the police arrived. They came in force, not just regular NYPD, but suits. Federal agents, maybe, or private security, or something else entirely. They moved with military precision, securing the scene, separating witnesses, their eyes constantly scanning for threats. One of them, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of alert stillness that marked him as former military, approached Adrian. "Sir, we need to get you out of here." "Not yet." Adrian didn't look at him. His attention remained fixed on Lena. "She's coming with us. Sir, protocol." "She saved my life, Marcus." The name was the same as the floor manager's, but this Marcus was clearly something else entirely. Security? Maybe more. That makes her a witness, potentially a target. I'm not leaving her here. I'm fine, Lena heard herself say, even though she wasn't fine, wasn't anywhere close to fine. I'll just talk to the police and tell them what? Adrian's voice remained calm, but something sharp glinted in his eyes. That you saw a laser sight no one else noticed? That you had the training and reflexes to react in under a second? They'll have questions, Lena. A lot of questions. And while they're asking them, whoever tried to kill me tonight will be asking questions too. The fear that had been hovering at the edges of her consciousness crashed over her in a wave. What are you saying? I'm saying you're a loose end, and in my world, loose ends get cut. He gestured toward the shattered window, toward the chaos, toward the reality of what had just happened. You can stay here, talk to the police, go home, and hope that whoever hired that sniper doesn't decide you saw too much. Or you can come with me, and I'll make sure you survive the night. It wasn't a choice. Not really. But he presented it like one anyway, and somehow that made it worse. Made her complicit in whatever came next. Lena looked around the restaurant. At Marcus, the floor manager, who was studiously avoiding her gaze. At the other waitstaff, huddled together, whispering. At the guests, some being escorted out by police, others giving statements, all of them part of a world that had suddenly revealed its razor edges. At the shattered window and the darkness beyond it. Somewhere out there, someone had tried to kill the man standing in front of her, someone with military-grade weapons and the skill to use them, someone who wouldn't appreciate witnesses. Okay, she whispered. Adrian nodded once, as if he'd expected nothing else. Marcus, get her out of here. Secure route. I'll handle the authorities. The security Marcus stepped forward, his hand light but firm on her elbow. Ma'am, this way. Wait. Lena turned back to Adrian. My things, my bag, my phone, I need to... We'll get them, Adrian assured her. Right now, we need to move. And just like that, Lena Brooks, invisible waitress, professional survivor, ghost in her own life, was escorted out of the Carlisle's back entrance and into a black SUV with tinted windows and bulletproof glass. The door closed with a heavy thunk that sounded like a vault ceiling, like a coffin, like the end of everything she'd known and the beginning of something she couldn't begin to comprehend. The safe house wasn't what Lena expected. She'd pictured something from a movie, sparse, industrial, the kind of place where people went to hide from consequences. Instead, the SUV delivered her to a high-rise in Midtown, all glass and steel and understated luxury. The kind of building where doormen wore better suits than most CEOs and the lobby smelled like money and fresh flowers. Security Marcus, she had learned his last name was Chen, guided her through a private elevator that required both a keycard and a fingerprint scan. They rose in silence, her ears popping as they climbed. Where are we? Her voice sounded small in the elevator's expensive quiet. Somewhere safe. Chen's tone was professional, neutral. Mr. Voss will be here within the hour. Until then, you should rest. The elevator opened onto a private vestibule. Another keycard. Another scan. Then doors slid open onto an apartment that redefined Lena's understanding of the word. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan like a kingdom laid out for conquest. The space was enormous, open-plan living area flowing into a kitchen that looked like it had been designed by someone who'd never actually cooked, bedrooms visible down a hallway that seemed to stretch forever. Everything was done in shades of gray and white and chrome, beautiful and cold and utterly impersonal. "There's food in the kitchen," Chen said. "Bathroom through there. Don't go near the windows. Don't try to leave. Someone will be outside if you need anything." "Am I a prisoner?" The question came out sharper than she intended. Chen's expression didn't change. "You're protected. There's a difference." Then he left, and Lena was alone. She stood in the middle of the vast living room, still wearing her uniform, now stained with champagne and bisque and streaked with her own blood from a cut on her palm she didn't remember getting. Glass sparkled in her hair. Her hands shook. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind a fatigue so profound it felt like gravity had doubled. Her knees buckled. She sank onto a pristine white sofa that probably cost more than her car and her apartment combined. And finally, she let herself fall apart. The sobs came in waves, wrenching themselves from somewhere deep in her chest. Fear, shock, the delayed reaction to almost dying, to saving a stranger, to having her entire life yanked sideways in the space between one breath and the next. She cried until she was empty, until the tears stopped meaning anything, until she was just a body going through motions while her mind tried to catch up with reality. Eventually, she dragged herself to the bathroom, stripped off her ruined uniform, stood under a shower so powerful it felt like standing in warm rain, washing away champagne and bisque and glass and fear until the water ran clear. There were clothes in the closet, women's clothes, expensive ones, in approximately her size. She tried not to think about why that might be. Pulled on soft sweatpants and a cashmere sweater that felt like being wrapped in clouds. The apartment had a strange quality. Beautiful, but unlived in. Like a stage set. Like something designed to look like home without actually being one. She found crackers in the kitchen, cheese that probably cost more per ounce than gold, water in glass bottles. Forced herself to eat even though her stomach was tied in knots. Then she waited. The windows showed Manhattan in all its glittering glory, millions of lights, millions of lives, a city that never stopped moving. Somewhere out there, her apartment sat empty. Her phone sat in a locker at the Carlisle. Her life continued without her, oblivious to the fact that she'd just stepped out of it and into something else entirely. She thought about calling someone. But who? She had no family left. Her mother had died 2 years ago. Cancer, slow and cruel. No close friends, just work acquaintances, friendly faces that had never deepened into actual relationships. No boyfriend, no emergency contact, no one who would miss her if she didn't come home. The realization hit her harder than it should have. When did I become so alone? The answer came immediately, mercilessly. When you decided safe was more important than anything else. The elevator chimed. Lena's heart kicked against her ribs. She turned, watching the doors slide open. Adrian Voss stepped into the apartment. He'd changed, the ruined suit replaced by dark jeans and a black sweater that somehow made him look even more dangerous. His hair was still damp from his own shower. The champagne and bisque were gone, but the intensity remained, crackling in the air around him like static electricity. He saw her immediately, his gray eyes doing that thing again, really looking, really seeing, cataloging every detail. "How are you?" His voice was quieter than it had been at the restaurant, almost gentle. "I don't know," Lena said honestly. "Scared? Confused? Wondering if this is real or if I'm having some kind of breakdown." "It's real." He moved into the space with a predator's grace, not quite approaching her but not keeping his distance either. "And you have every right to be scared. What happened tonight, that was an attempt on my life, professional, expensive. And because you intervened, you became part of the story." "Who are you?" The question had been building since the moment she saw that red dot. I mean, really, what kind of person gets assassination attempts at a restaurant? A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. The kind who makes difficult decisions and powerful enemies. He gestured toward the seating area. "Sit, Please, we need to talk. Lena sat, her body sinking into the expensive couch. Adrian took a chair across from her, maintaining the distance, giving her space. Predator rules. Don't crowd the prey. My name is Adrian Voss, he began. I run a private equity firm called Voss Capital. On paper, we invest in companies, restructure them, make them profitable. In reality, he paused, choosing his words carefully. We operate in the spaces between legal and necessary, gray areas where the rules are flexible and the stakes are high. That's a very diplomatic way of saying you're a criminal. I prefer pragmatist. No defensiveness in his tone, just fact. I don't deal in drugs or trafficking or any of the obvious evils, but I do business with people who make traditional bankers nervous. I solve problems that can't be solved through conventional means. And yes, that makes me enemies. Like whoever tried to kill you tonight. Exactly. He leaned forward slightly, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped. I have a short list of suspects. People who would benefit from my death. People with the resources to hire a professional shooter. But until I know for certain who ordered the hit, everyone is a potential threat. Including me. No. The word was absolute. You proved yourself tonight. Whether you meant to or not, you chose a side, my side. And that means I'm responsible for keeping you alive. Lena's laugh came out bitter. How noble. I didn't ask for your protection. No, you didn't. You asked for nothing. You simply acted. His eyes held hers. Why? Why what? Why did you save me? You could have frozen, could have convinced yourself you imagined the laser sight, could have let nature take its course. Instead, you risked your life for a stranger. The question caught her off guard. She'd been so focused on the aftermath that she hadn't examined the moment itself, the split-second decision that had changed everything. I don't know, she said finally. I saw the red dot and I just moved, didn't think, didn't decide, just acted. Instinct. Adrian nodded slowly. The kind that keeps people alive in situations where thinking gets you killed. He studied her with renewed interest, like she was a puzzle he hadn't quite solved. You said you had no training. I believe you. But you have something else. Something rarer. What? The ability to act when it matters. He stood, moving to the windows, his silhouette backlit by the city's glow. Most people freeze. Even trained professionals freeze when the moment comes. But you didn't. You saw the threat, and you neutralized it without hesitation. I dumped soup on you, Lena said flatly. That's not exactly Navy SEAL-level tactics. You moved me out of the kill zone in the only way available to you in that moment. It was clever, effective, saved my life. He turned back to face her. Don't diminish what you did, Lena. You have a gift, whether you want it or not. I don't want it. The words came out fierce, desperate. I don't want any of this. I want to go home. I want my normal, boring life back. I want safety, Adrian finished for her. I understand. Believe me. I understand the appeal of invisibility, of moving through the world without making waves. But that option is gone now. Because of you. Because of the choices we both made tonight. He didn't flinch from her anger. I won't lie to you, Lena. The people who tried to kill me won't forget about the waitress who saved my life. They'll want to know how you spotted the laser sight. They'll want to know what else you saw, what you know. And they won't ask nicely. The fear came roaring back, flooding her system with ice-cold clarity. So what happens now? Now, you stay here where it's secure. We figure out who ordered the hit. We eliminate the threat. And then, if you still want to, you go back to your life. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple. It's messy and dangerous, and there are no guarantees, but it's the best option available. He moved closer, close enough that she could see the exhaustion around his eyes, the tension in his jaw. I know this isn't what you wanted. I know I'm asking you to trust me when you have no reason to. But I swear to you, Lena, I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that he was one of the good guys, or at least one of the better bad guys. But trust was a luxury she'd learned to live without. How long? She asked instead. Until we neutralize the threat? A week, maybe 2. And I'm supposed to just, what? Hide here? Wait? Not exactly. Something shifted in his expression, calculation, consideration, the gears turning behind those gray eyes. I could use your help. My help? Doing what? What you do best. He gestured towards the city beyond the windows. Observing. Noticing details other people miss. You spotted a laser sight in under a second in a crowded restaurant. That kind of perceptiveness is valuable. Lena stared at him. You want me to help you figure out who tried to kill you? Among other things. I have analysts, security, people whose job is to find threats. But they think like professionals. They miss the obvious because they're looking for complexity. You see things differently. I'm a waitress. You were a waitress. Now you're something else. He extended his hand, the gesture formal, old-fashioned. Work with me, Lena. Help me end this threat. And when it's over, I'll make sure you have a future better than the one you left behind. She looked at his hand, looked at his face, looked at the windows and the city beyond, and the life she'd built from safety and invisibility and fear. The smart choice was obvious. Keep her head down, do what she was told, survive. But when had she ever made the smart choice? She'd saved a stranger's life tonight for no reason except that she saw a red dot and moved. No calculation, no benefit, just instinct. Maybe it was time to stop being smart and start being brave. Lena took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, certain. Okay, she said. I'll help you. But if you get me killed, I'm haunting you forever. That ghost of a smile returned. Deal. Neither of them let go immediately. The handshake extended a beat too long, became something else, a pact, a promise. The beginning of something neither of them could name yet. Finally, Adrian released her hand. You should rest. Tomorrow we start working. I'll have Chen bring you a laptop, files, everything you'll need. What am I looking for? Patterns, inconsistencies, anything that doesn't fit. He moved toward the elevator. The people who tried to kill me left clues, they always do. We just have to find them. Hey, Adrian? She stood, her heart hammering. One more question, the one that mattered most. Why did they try to kill you tonight? Why at the Carlisle? Why then? He paused at the elevator, his finger on the call button. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I was meeting with people who wanted me dead, showing strength, proving I wasn't afraid. His jaw tightened. Pride, the oldest sin. And it almost got me killed. And me, Lena added quietly. And you. He met her eyes across the distance. I'm sorry for that. Truly. You didn't deserve to be dragged into my war. No one deserves war, she replied. But we end up in them anyway. Something flickered across his face, surprise maybe, or recognition, like she'd said exactly what he'd been thinking but never voiced. The elevator chimed. The doors slid open. Good night, Lena Brooks. He stepped inside. Try to sleep. Things will look clearer in the morning. The doors closed. Lena stood alone in the expensive apartment, her hand still warm from his grip, her mind racing with questions that had no easy answers. She walked to the windows, pressed her forehead against the cool glass, and looked down at the city. Somewhere out there, a sniper was probably reporting failure to whoever had hired them. Somewhere, enemies were regrouping, planning their next move. And here she was, Lena Brooks, professional invisible person, suddenly at the center of something vast and dangerous and completely insane. She should be terrified. She was terrified. But underneath the fear, something else stirred. Something she hadn't felt in years, maybe ever. Purpose. For the first time in her entire carefully constructed, aggressively safe life, she mattered. Not as a server or a paycheck or a warm body filling a uniform, but as herself. As someone who saw things others missed. As someone who acted when action was needed. As someone who chose. The red dot had been meant to mark a death. Instead, it had marked a beginning. Lena pressed her palm against the glass, feeling the city's pulse through the barrier. Okay, she whispered to the night, to herself, to the future rushing toward her like a train. Let's see where this goes. Behind her, the apartment settled into expensive silence. Outside, the city glittered and churned and promised nothing except that morning would come, eventually, whether she was ready or not. Sleep came in fragments, haunted by red dots and shattering glass. But beneath it all, for the first time in forever, Lena Brooks dreamed of something other than survival. She dreamed of becoming someone worth remembering. Part 2 lưu ý. Viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện và hội thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới, liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch. Sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ, phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc. Kể theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man, kết thúc phần không giới thiệu phần sau. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document, chi dần bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí. Không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật. Không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. Show more 10 giờ 26 phút, Part 2. Morning arrived without permission, sunlight slicing through the floor-to-ceiling windows like an accusation. Lena woke disoriented, her body wrapped in sheets that cost more than her monthly rent, her mind struggling to separate nightmare from memory. The red dot. The shattered glass. Adrian Voss's hand in hers. All real. All impossible. All true. She dragged herself out of bed, muscles aching from tension she'd carried through the night. The apartment looked different in daylight, less like a sanctuary and more like a gilded cage. Beautiful, isolated. Hers only because someone else allowed it. A knock at the door made her freeze. Ms. Brooks? Chen's voice, professional and neutral. I have your laptop and files. May I come in? She wrapped herself in a robe she'd found in the closet, thick white terry cloth that felt like wearing a cloud. Come in. Chen entered carrying a sleek silver laptop and a stack of folders thick enough to use as a weapon. He set them on the dining table with the care of someone handling explosives. Mr. Voss asked me to provide you with access to our preliminary investigation, he said, his face revealing nothing. The password is your full name, no spaces, followed by today's date. Everything is encrypted. Don't try to copy files or send emails. The system will lock you out. What exactly am I looking for? Patterns, anomalies, anything that strikes you as wrong. Chen's expression remained carefully blank. Mr. Voss believes you have an eye for details others miss. This is your chance to prove it. He left before she could ask more questions, the door closing with that heavy vault-like thunk that reminded her she wasn't free to leave. Lena approached the laptop like it might bite, opened it, entered the password, watched as files bloomed across the screen, financial records, surveillance footage, personnel files, communication logs. A digital map of Adrian Voss's world laid out for her inspection. She should have been overwhelmed, should have closed the laptop and demanded to be taken home. Consequences be damned. Instead, she poured herself coffee from the obscenely expensive machine in the kitchen and started reading. The first file was a dossier on Adrian himself. She told herself she was looking for clues about his enemies, but really, she was looking for him, trying to understand the man who'd pulled her into this chaos. Adrian Michael Voss, 36 years old. No living family, parents dead in a car accident when he was 19, no siblings, no wife, no children. Built Voss Capital from nothing over the course of 15 years, turning a small venture fund into an empire that operated in 17 countries. The financial records made her head spin. Acquisitions, mergers, restructurings, companies bought and sold like poker chips. Millions moving through accounts faster than she could track. But it was the personnel files that caught her attention. Voss Capital employed 47 people directly, another 200 contractors, security personnel, analysts. She scrolled through their faces, their credentials, their employment histories. Most were exactly what they appeared to be: finance professionals, former military, tech specialists. The kind of people who thrived in gray areas where rules bent but didn't quite break. But 3 files made her pause. The first belonged to a woman named Elise Cordova, Chief Financial Officer, 42, Harvard MBA, Previously worked at Goldman Sachs. On paper, she was perfect. But something about her employment history nagged at Lena: gaps, unexplained transitions, a pattern of moving just before companies collapsed. The second was Marcus Chen, the security chief who'd escorted her here. Former Marine, decorated, impeccable record. Except his financials showed a lifestyle that didn't match his salary. Expensive cars, a penthouse in Soho, debts that had mysteriously disappeared 6 months ago. The third was a man named Victor Reeves, head of international operations. British accent in his interview transcripts, but his background check showed he was born in Moscow. Changed his name at 23. No explanation why. Lena made notes on a legal pad, her handwriting cramped and urgent. These probably meant nothing, probably had reasonable explanations, but they were anomalies, and anomalies were what Adrian had asked her to find. Hours passed, the coffee went cold. Her eyes burned from staring at the screen. She was deep in Victor Reeves's travel logs. He'd been in Singapore the week before the assassination attempt, meeting with clients whose names were redacted, when the elevator chimed. Adrian stepped into the apartment carrying takeout bags that smelled like heaven. "You need to eat," he said, without preamble, setting the bags on the counter. "And you need to step away from the screen before you damage your eyesight." "I found something." Lena stood, her legs cramping from sitting too long. "Maybe. 3 people with irregularities in their files." Interest sharpened his expression. "Show me." They stood shoulder to shoulder at the dining table while Lena walked him through her findings. She was hyper-aware of his proximity, the warmth radiating from his body, the faint scent of his cologne, the way he leaned in slightly when he concentrated. "Elise has been with me for 8 years, he said when she finished explaining the CFO's employment gaps. "She's ambitious, ruthless when necessary, but loyal. People change." "Not Elise. I've seen her turn down offers triple what I pay her. She's building something here." "What about Chen?" Lena pulled up the security chief's financials. "These expenses don't match his income." Adrian's jaw tightened. Marcus received a bonus last year, substantial, after he prevented a security breach that could have cost me everything. A bonus big enough to buy a penthouse and pay off 6 figures in debt? He earned it. But Adrian's tone had shifted, become defensive, protective. Next, Lena showed him Victor Reeves's file, the name change, the Moscow origins. Adrian studied it in silence, his expression unreadable. "Victor was recruited from Russian intelligence," he said finally. "I knew about the name change. He was defecting, needed a new identity." "And you trust him?" "I trust very few people, Lena. But Victor has saved my life twice. Once in Prague, once in Dubai. He's had opportunities to betray me and hasn't taken them." She heard what he wasn't saying, that trust in his world was measured in actions, not words, in loyalty proven through blood and choice and the 1,000 small decisions that revealed character. "So I'm wrong," she said, disappointment settling heavy in her chest. "These aren't leads, they're just noise." "No." Adrian turned to face her fully. "You're looking at the right things, asking the right questions, but you're missing context. These people, Elise, Marcus, Victor, they're complex, messy, but they're mine." "Then who tried to kill you?" "That's the question, isn't it?" He moved to the windows, his silhouette dark against the city's glare. "I've been asking it for 18 hours and coming up empty. Whoever ordered the hit covered their tracks beautifully." "Maybe they're not in your files," Lena suggested. "Maybe they're outside your organization." "My enemies are legion." His voice carried bitter amusement. "Narrowing it down is the challenge." "Walk me through it. Who benefits from your death?" He was quiet for a long moment, weighing how much to share. Then he started talking, and Lena realized she'd just been granted access to secrets that could get them both killed. 3 main players, Adrian began. "First, there's Konstantin Volkov, Russian oligarch. We had a deal go sideways 2 years ago. I acquired a company he wanted, cost him $1 billion and considerable pride. He's the type to hold grudges. Would he risk a hit on American soil? Volkov doesn't think in terms of risk. He thinks in terms of power, and killing me would send a message to everyone who's ever crossed him." Lena made notes, her hand steady despite the fear creeping up her spine. Who else? Senator Patricia Moreland. We used to work together. She'd give me advance notice on regulatory changes. I'd fund her campaigns. Mutually beneficial, until I discovered she was also taking money from a cartel. I cut ties. She doesn't forgive easily. A senator ordered a hit on you? Lena's voice climbed despite her effort to stay calm. In my world, senators are just better-dressed criminals. Adrian's tone was matter-of-fact, stripped of judgment or surprise. She has the connections, the motivation, the resources. And the third? He hesitated. For the first time since she'd met him, Adrian Voss looked uncertain. The third is complicated, he said finally. There's a man named James Calloway. We were partners once, built Voss Capital together from nothing. But James wanted to expand into territories I wouldn't touch. Weapons trafficking, political assassinations, the kind of business that destroys whatever it touches. We had a falling out. Violent. Final. How final? The kind where one of us should have died. Adrian's hands curled into fists at his sides. I bought him out, paid him triple what his share was worth. Thought that would be the end of it. But James isn't motivated by money. He's motivated by control, by winning. And as long as I'm alive and successful, he's losing. Lena absorbed this, trying to imagine the kind of partnership that ended in near murder. Any of these three could have ordered the hit? All of them, none of them. That's what makes this impossible. Frustration bled through his controlled exterior. I've survived this long by being 3 steps ahead, but this time I'm blind. Then we need more information. Lena stood, pacing, her mind working through possibilities. Financial records, communication logs, travel patterns. There has to be a trail. I have teams working on exactly that. But they think like you, like professionals looking for professional moves. She turned to face him. What if this wasn't professional? What if it was personal? Adrian's eyes narrowed. Explain. The hit was at the Carlyle, a public restaurant, high risk, low probability of success. A professional would have chosen somewhere isolated, controllable. The pieces were clicking together in her mind, instinct overriding logic. But someone angry? Someone who wanted you to know they were coming. They'd choose somewhere visible, dramatic. You think this was about sending a message? I think whoever tried to kill you wanted an audience. Lena pulled up the surveillance footage from the Carlyle, grainy black and white images of the restaurant's exterior. They wanted people to see, to talk, to spread fear. Adrian moved closer, studying the footage over her shoulder. That eliminates Volkov. He operates in shadows, prefers discreet eliminations. What about the senator? Moreland is ruthless but calculated. A public assassination would draw too much attention. His breath stirred her hair, close enough to touch. Which leaves James, who is dramatic. James believes in spectacle, in making examples. Adrian's voice had gone cold, deadly. If he wanted me dead, he'd want everyone to know he was the one who did it. Lena turned, found herself inches from Adrian's chest, close enough to see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the gold flecks in his gray eyes, close enough to feel the tension radiating from him like heat. How do we prove it? Her voice came out quieter than intended. We find the sniper, make them talk. Simple words, heavy with violence. And if they won't? Something dark flickered across Adrian's face. Everyone talks eventually. The implications settled between them like smoke. Lena should have been horrified, should have recoiled from the casual brutality in his tone. Instead, she held his gaze. I want to help. You are helping. This analysis. No, I want to be there. When you find them. When you get answers. She lifted her chin, refusing to back down. You brought me into this. Don't lock me away now that it's getting dangerous. It's been dangerous since the moment you saw that red dot. Then let me do something about it. Adrian studied her, conflict warring in his expression. Protection versus respect. Control versus trust. You understand what you're asking? His voice dropped lower, intimate and dangerous. This isn't theory. This isn't files and analysis. This is blood and consequences and choices you can't unmake. I saved your life, Lena said quietly. That was a choice I couldn't unmake. Everything after is just aftermath. For a long moment, they stood frozen. Two people from different worlds circling around something neither could name. Then Adrian nodded once, sharp and final. Okay, but you follow my lead. You do exactly what I say. And if things go wrong, I run. I know. She managed a smile. I'm scared, Adrian. Not stupid. Fear is good. It keeps you sharp. He stepped back, breaking the tension. We move tonight. I have a lead on the sniper's location. How? One of Victor's contacts saw someone matching the profile checking into a hotel in Brooklyn. Could be nothing. Could be everything. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. We'll know soon enough. Lena watched him shift into operational mode, shoulders straightening, expression hardening, every trace of uncertainty locked away. This was Adrian Voss, the strategist, the predator, the man who'd built an empire in gray spaces and defended it with steel. Eat something, he instructed, gesturing to the forgotten takeout. Rest if you can. I'll be back at midnight. He moved toward the elevator, then paused, looking back at her. Lena? What you said about the hit being personal, about James wanting an audience? That was good instinct. Better than good. You're seeing this clearly. Warmth bloomed in her chest. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. Tonight could change everything. The elevator doors closed, leaving her alone with cold takeout and a laptop full of secrets. Lena tried to eat, but managed only a few bites. Tried to rest, but sleep was impossible, her mind spinning through scenarios and possibilities. Instead, she returned to the files, digging deeper into James Calloway's history. The man who stared back from his personnel photo was handsome in a dangerous way. Sharp features, cold blue eyes, a smile that didn't reach past his teeth. His file was impressive and terrifying in equal measure. MIT graduate, decorated Army Ranger, successful venture capitalist before partnering with Adrian. The partnership had lasted 7 years, built Voss Capital into a powerhouse. Then something had fractured, and fractures in that world didn't heal. They shattered. Lena found the dissolution agreement, 20 pages of legal language that boiled down to mutual destruction assured. Adrian had paid James $30 million. James had signed away all rights, all claims, all future involvement. But in the margins, someone, probably Adrian, had written a single note. This isn't over. Prophetic, ominous, true. She was still reading when Chen appeared with dinner she didn't want and warnings she needed. Mr. Voss asked me to brief you on protocols, he said, his tone suggesting this was an obligation rather than a choice. If you're joining tonight's operation, you need to understand the rules. I'm listening. Rule 1. You stay in the vehicle unless explicitly told otherwise. Rule 2. You don't speak unless spoken to. Rule 3. If something goes wrong, you run. Don't look back. Don't be a hero. Just run. Got it. Chen's expression softened slightly. Ms. Brooks, I don't know what you did to earn Mr. Voss's trust, but understand, he doesn't bring civilians into operations, ever. You being there puts him at risk, puts the entire team at risk. I know. Do you? He leaned forward, intensity crackling. Because Mr. Voss is a good man operating in a bad world. He makes hard choices so other people don't have to, but he has blind spots, weaknesses, and right now you're one of them. The words landed like a punch. I'm not trying to be a weakness. Doesn't matter what you're trying to be. Matters what you are. Chen stood, his message delivered. Be ready at 11:30. Wear dark clothes, no jewelry, no perfume, nothing that reflects light or makes sound. He left her with that, the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders like a physical thing. Was she Adrian's weakness? A liability masquerading as an asset? Maybe. Probably. But she'd made her choice, and she'd see it through. Midnight found Lena in the SUV's back seat, dressed in black jeans and a dark sweater, her heart hammering against her ribs. Chen drove with military precision. Victor Reeves sat in the passenger seat, checking weapons with casual efficiency that should have been terrifying, but somehow wasn't. Adrian sat beside her, silent and focused, his presence filling the space. The hotel is in Red Hook, Victor said, his British accent clipped and professional. 4th floor, corner room. Visual confirmation an hour ago. Single occupant. Male. Matches the profile. Security. Adrian's voice was all business. Light. One guard at the entrance, cameras in the lobby and stairwells. We can bypass both. Good. Chen, you cover the exits. Victor, you're with me. Lena stays in the vehicle. What if he runs? Lena heard herself ask. He won't. Adrian's certainty was absolute. This is a professional. Professionals don't run. They negotiate. The hotel was exactly what she expected. Cheap, anonymous. The kind of place where people paid cash and didn't ask questions. They parked 2 blocks away, in shadows deep enough to hide the SUV's presence. Adrian turned to her, his gray eyes catching streetlight. Lock the doors, keep the engine running. If we're not back in 20 minutes, drive away and call this number. He handed her a card with a phone number written in neat print. Don't argue. Don't wait. Just go. Adrian, 20 minutes, Lena, promise me. She swallowed her protest. I promise. He nodded, satisfied, then slipped out of the vehicle with Victor. Chen followed, moving to a position covering the hotel's rear exit. Within seconds, all 3 had vanished into the Brooklyn night like ghosts. Lena sat alone in the dark, watching the seconds tick by on the dashboard clock. Her hands gripped the steering wheel even though she wasn't driving, needing something solid to hold on to. 15 minutes passed, then 18. At 19 minutes, gunfire cracked through the night. Not the sharp report of pistols, but something heavier, automatic, a sound that turned her blood to ice. Screams followed, more gunfire, the harsh wail of a car alarm. Every instinct screamed at her to drive away, to keep her promise, to survive. But Adrian was in there. Victor, Chen. Her hand hovered over the gear shift. 20 minutes. She should go. She'd promised. The hotel's front entrance exploded in a shower of glass. Men poured out. Not running, fighting. She saw Chen first, locked in combat with someone twice his size. Then Victor, firing methodically, each shot precise and deadly. And then Adrian, dragging someone, the sniper, had to be, blood streaming from somewhere on his body, his face a mask of controlled fury. Lena didn't think, didn't calculate. She threw the SUV into drive and gunned it straight toward them. The vehicle jumped the curb, scattering trash cans and screeching to a halt inches from where Adrian struggled. He looked up, saw her, and something flickered in his eyes, fury and relief, and something else she couldn't name. "Get in!" she screamed. Chen threw his opponent into a wall and dove for the passenger door. Victor provided covering fire, backing toward the vehicle. His movements controlled chaos. Adrian shoved the sniper, unconscious or dead, Lena couldn't tell, into the back and climbed in after him. Drive! Adrian's command cut through the mayhem. Lena drove. She drove like she'd never driven before, pure instinct and adrenaline overriding every traffic law ever written. The SUV roared through Red Hook, taking corners too fast, running lights, becoming a missile aimed at escape. Behind them, sounds of pursuit, shouting. More gunfire. Take the next left, Victor directed, his voice steady despite the blood on his face. Then the expressway. Lose them in traffic. Lena obeyed, her hands white-knuckled on the wheel, her breathing coming in sharp gasps. The vehicle fishtailed as she made the turn, tires screaming, but she held it steady. Chen was on his phone, speaking rapid fire in what sounded like Mandarin, making arrangements, calling in favors. In the back seat, Adrian had the sniper pinned, checking for weapons, for identification, for anything useful. He's alive, Adrian confirmed. Barely. Took a round in the shoulder. Good, Victor said coldly. He can talk. Will he? Lena's voice shook. Everyone talks eventually. They made it to the expressway, merged into traffic, became invisible among thousands of other vehicles fleeing Brooklyn in the small hours. The pursuit, if there had been one, fell away. Slowly, incrementally, Lena's heartbeat returned to something approaching normal. You were supposed to drive away, Adrian said, his voice carefully neutral. I know. You were supposed to keep your promise. I know. So why didn't you? Lena met his eyes in the rearview mirror, saw anger there, concern, something deeper. Because promises don't mean much when the people you made them to are dying, she said quietly. I made a choice, same as I did at the restaurant. Adrian held her gaze for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled. You're going to get us all killed. Probably. Worth it. He looked down at the unconscious sniper. We have our answers now. or we will soon. The safe house they took the sniper to wasn't the Manhattan high-rise. This was something else entirely. A warehouse in Long Island City, industrial and isolated. The kind of place where screams wouldn't carry. Lena should have been horrified, should have refused to enter, but she'd crossed too many lines already. What was one more? Inside, the warehouse had been converted into something between a military installation and a hospital. Medical equipment, holding cells, interrogation rooms. They secured the sniper, a man in his 40s, nondescript professional, in one of the cells. A doctor appeared from somewhere, tended to his wounds with clinical efficiency. "He'll live," the doctor reported. "Give him an hour to stabilize, then he's all yours." Adrian nodded, then turned to Lena. "You should wait upstairs. What happens next?" "I'm staying." Her voice was firm. "I've come this far." "Lena, I'm staying." He searched her face, looking for hesitation, for fear, for the breaking point. Found none. "Okay," he said finally, "but understand, what you see here stays here, no matter what happens after, no matter how this ends." "I understand." She didn't, not really, but she would. An hour later, the sniper woke to find himself strapped to a chair in a concrete room, facing Adrian Voss and the woman who'd saved his target's life. "Let's talk," Adrian said, his voice pleasant and cold. "You tried to kill me. I want to know who paid you." The sniper said nothing. "I can make this easy or hard," Adrian continued. "Easy means you tell me what I want to know, and you walk away with enough money to disappear forever. Hard means, well, you don't want to know what hard means." Still nothing. Adrian glanced at Victor, who stepped forward with tools Lena tried not to look at too closely. "Last chance," Adrian said. "Who hired you?" The sniper smiled. Lena's blood ran cold. "You really don't know, do you?" The sniper's voice was rough, damaged. "You've made so many enemies you can't even narrow it down." "Then help me narrow it." "Why would I do that? You'll kill me either way." "Not true. I'm a businessman. I honor deals." Adrian leaned forward. "Tell me who paid you, and you walk out of here alive and rich. Refuse, and we find out how much pain you can take before you break. Everyone breaks eventually." The sniper studied Adrian, weighing options, calculating odds. Then his eyes slid to Lena. "She doesn't belong here," he said. "The waitress. She's not one of you." "She saved my life," Adrian replied. "That makes her exactly one of us." "Does she know what you are? What you've done?" "I know enough," Lena heard herself say. Her voice was steady, stronger than she felt. "I know he's trying to find who tried to kill him. I know you're going to tell him, and I know that whatever happens in this room, I chose to be here." The sniper laughed, the sound bitter and broken. "You chose wrong, waitress. You saved a monster." "Maybe," Lena said. "Or maybe I saved a man trying to survive in a monstrous world. Either way, my choice stands." Something shifted in the room. The sniper's smile faded. He looked at Adrian with new understanding. "She's the real thing, isn't she? Not bought, not blackmailed, actually loyal." "Yes," Adrian said simply. "Then you're already dead." The sniper leaned back as far as his restraints allowed. "Because James Calloway knows your weakness now, and he'll use it to destroy you." The name hung in the air like a verdict. "James hired you," Adrian said. Not a question, confirmation. "James hired 12 of us. I was just the first." The sniper's expression was almost pitying. "He's not trying to kill you quickly, Voss. He's trying to make you suffer. To take everything you value, everyone you care about, and then, when you're broken and alone, he'll pull the trigger himself." Horror crawled up Lena's spine. 12 assassins? 12 attempts. 12 chances to hit someone you care about. Your employees, your friends. Her. The sniper nodded toward Lena. "You saved his life tonight, waitress. Congratulations. You just painted a target on your own back." Adrian's composure finally cracked. "Where's James?" "If I knew that, you think I'd be here?" "James doesn't trust anyone with his location. We get orders through dead drops and encrypted channels. Could be anywhere." "Then how do we stop him?" The sniper's smile returned, cruel and knowing. "You don't. You just survive. If you can." Adrian stood abruptly, his chair scraping against concrete. He walked to the far wall, his back to them, his shoulders rigid with barely contained fury. Victor stepped into the silence. "You've been very helpful, thank you. Do I get my money?" "You get your life. Be grateful." The sniper laughed again. "My life isn't worth much anymore. James doesn't tolerate failure." "Then disappear," Adrian said without turning around. "Take what resources you have and vanish. Because if I see you again, our deal is void." Victor and Chen escorted the sniper out, leaving Adrian and Lena alone in the concrete room. She approached him carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. "Adrian, I'm sorry." His voice was hollow, defeated. "I brought you into this thinking I could protect you. But if James is targeting everyone I care about, then we stop him. You heard the man. 12 assassins, 12 attempts. How do we stop that? The same way we stopped this one, together." Lena moved to stand beside him, their shoulders almost touching. "You're not alone in this anymore." "I should be. For your safety, I should send you away. Witness protection, new identity, a life far from mine." "But you won't." He turned to face her, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole her breath. "No, I won't, because somewhere between the red dot and right now, I started to care whether you lived or died. And that makes you a weapon someone can use against me. Or it makes me a reason to fight harder." Lena held his gaze, refusing to flinch. "Stop trying to protect me from myself, Adrian. I'm here by choice. Let me help end this." "It could get you killed." "Living could get me killed. At least this way I'm choosing the danger." For a long moment they stood in the harsh fluorescent light of the interrogation room, two people from different worlds who'd somehow ended up in the same war. Then Adrian reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the gesture so gentle it hurt. "Okay," he whispered. "We fight together." Part 4. Lưu ý đó, viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện, pha hội thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước, không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới, liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch. Sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần, duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ, phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc. Kể theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man, kết thúc phần không giới thiệu phần sau. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document. Tri dân bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí. Không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật. Không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. Show more 10 giờ 34 phút 2 trên 2, Part Bon. The federal agents arrived at dawn, their credentials gleaming in the early light like badges of judgment. Lena watched from the penthouse windows as 3 black sedans pulled up to the building's entrance, their occupants moving with the precise choreography of people who'd done this 1,000 times before. "They're here for you," Adrian said quietly. He stood behind her, close enough that she could feel his presence like heat. "I expected this sooner." "What do they want?" "To offer you a way out, witness protection, immunity, a new life far from the mess I've dragged you into." His reflection in the glass was unreadable. "You should take it." Lena turned to face him. 3 weeks had passed since the warehouse, since James Calloway's name had been spoken like a curse, since they'd started hunting ghosts through digital trails and desperate contacts. 3 weeks of living in Adrian's world, learning its rules, becoming something other than the woman who'd served champagne and bisque to people who didn't see her. 3 weeks of falling into something that terrified her more than assassins ever could. "What if I don't want out?" she asked. "Then you're a fool." But his eyes said something different, something desperate and dangerous and real. "Lena, there are now 9 confirmed attempts remaining. James isn't going to stop. Every day you stay here is a day you're in his crosshairs. So are you. So is everyone in your organization. They chose this life, you didn't." "I chose to save you," Lena said fiercely. "Everything after is just me standing by that choice." The intercom buzzed, Chen's voice tight with tension. Mr. Voss, the federal agents are requesting access. Should I send them up? Adrian's jaw clenched. For a moment, Lena thought he'd refuse, would send them away, would keep fighting this impossible war with just his resources and his rage. Instead, he pressed the button. Send them up. The lead agent was a woman in her 50s with iron gray hair and eyes that had seen too much to be impressed by penthouse views or powerful men. She introduced herself as Special Agent Catherine Reeves, FBI, and her handshake was firm enough to communicate both competence and warning. Ms. Brooks, she said, her attention fixed solely on Lena as if Adrian were furniture. We need to talk about your situation. My situation? Lena kept her voice level despite her hammering heart. You're a material witness to an attempted homicide. More importantly, you're currently residing with a person of interest in multiple ongoing federal investigations. Reeves's tone was professional, stripped of judgment, but heavy with implication. We're prepared to offer you protection. I'm already protected. By a man who operates in gray legal areas and has more enemies than you can count? Reeves pulled out a tablet, pulled up photographs that made Lena's stomach drop. These are surveillance images from the past 3 weeks. You and Mr. Voss at a warehouse in Long Island City. You in his vehicle during what appears to be a pursuit. You present at locations where violence has occurred. I haven't broken any laws. Not yet. But association with Mr. Voss puts you in proximity to activities that will eventually require you to choose between complicity and testimony. Reeves set down the tablet. We're offering you a third option. Cooperate now. Tell us what you know about Voss Capital's operations, and we'll relocate you. New name, new city, new life. Clean slate. Adrian, who'd been silent until now, spoke with dangerous calm. You're asking her to betray me. I'm offering her freedom from a situation that will only end in prison or death. Reeves finally looked at him, her expression hard. You know this, Voss. You've seen it happen before. People get close to you. They get burned. How many associates have you lost in the past decade? How many ended up in federal custody, or worse? That's not a fair question. Fair isn't my concern. Ms. Brooks's survival is. Reeves turned back to Lena. You seem like an intelligent woman, resourceful. You saved this man's life, which shows character. But that same character is going to get you killed if you stay in his orbit. Lena felt the weight of both their gazes. The federal agent offering salvation through betrayal. Adrian saying nothing but radiating tension, waiting for her choice, already bracing for abandonment. She thought about the red dot, about the decision she'd made in a fraction of a second, the choice that had shattered her safe, invisible life and rebuilt it into something sharp and dangerous and real. No, Lena said quietly. Reeves's expression didn't change. No? No, I won't cooperate. No, I won't testify. No, I don't want your protection. Each word was a bridge burning, a door closing, a future discarded. I appreciate the offer, Agent Reeves, but I'm exactly where I choose to be. You're choosing wrong. Maybe, but it's my choice to make. Reeves studied her for a long moment, then gathered her tablet and stood. When this ends badly, and it will end badly, Ms. Brooks, don't expect us to offer this again. The door we're opening now closes permanently once you walk away from it. I understand. I don't think you do, but you will. Reeves headed for the elevator, then paused. Mr. Voss? A word? Adrian followed her into the hallway, leaving Lena alone with the weight of what she'd just refused. Through the partially open door, she heard their low conversation. She doesn't know what she's choosing, Reeves said. She knows enough. Does she know about Prague? About the Dubai situation? About the real reason James Calloway wants you dead? That's none of your concern. It becomes my concern when civilians get caught in your war. Reeves's voice sharpened. You're using her, Voss. Maybe not intentionally, maybe you even care about her, but you're still using her as a shield, as leverage, as something to fight for. And when James figures out exactly how much she means to you, he'll take her apart piece by piece just to watch you break. I won't let that happen. You can't stop it. You couldn't stop what happened to the last person who mattered to you. What makes you think this time will be different? Silence. Heavy and damning. Then Adrian's voice, stripped of its usual control. Because this time I'm not running. This time I end it. By doing what? Declaring war on a ghost? James Calloway has been off the grid for 2 years. No confirmed sightings, no traceable communications, nothing. He's a phantom, and phantoms don't die. They just keep killing. Then I'll drag him into the light and sacrifice how many people in the process? Reeves's question hung in the air like an indictment. That woman in there just chose you over safety, over sanity. The least you can do is be honest with her about what that choice means. The elevator chimed. Reeves left without another word, taking with her the last lifeline Lena would ever be offered. Adrian returned to the penthouse, his face a careful mask that didn't quite hide the turmoil underneath. "You didn't have to refuse," he said. "Yes, I did." "Lena, what did she mean about Prague? About the last person who mattered to you?" The questions had been building since she'd overheard the conversation. "Who did James take from you?" Adrian moved to the windows, his silhouette dark against the morning light. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of old grief, old guilt, old rage never quite buried. "Her name was Sarah Chen, Marcus's sister. She was my partner, not in business, in life. We were going to get married." The words came slowly, painfully, like extracting shrapnel. "James found out. Decided she was the perfect leverage. Took her in Prague, held her for 3 days while he negotiated terms I couldn't possibly meet." Lena's chest tightened. "What happened?" "I tried to save her. Mounted a rescue with Marcus and Victor, went in prepared for anything except what we found." His hands curled into fists. "James didn't want ransom. He wanted me to watch her die. Wanted me to understand that caring about anyone made me weak, made them a weapon he could use against me. Adrian, Marcus pulled the trigger that ended it, not James. Marcus, because watching her suffer was worse than losing her." Adrian's voice cracked, just slightly, just enough. "That's when I bought James out. Paid him everything to end the partnership, end the war. Thought that would be enough. Thought he'd take this money and disappear. But he didn't. He did. For 2 years, nothing. No contact, no threats, no sightings. I started to believe maybe it was finally over, and then that red dot appeared on my chest and I knew James was back. And this time, he wouldn't stop until one of us was dead." Lena crossed to him, stood close enough to touch, but didn't, giving him space to finish breaking. "That's why Reeves was right," Adrian continued. "Staying with me, caring about me, it paints a target on your back identical to the one Sarah wore, and I couldn't save her. What makes you think I can save you?" "Because I'm not asking you to save me." Lena finally touched him, her hand on his arm, grounding them both. "I'm asking you to let me fight beside you. There's a difference. Sarah fought beside me. It got her killed. I'm not Sarah, and this isn't Prague." She moved to face him, forced him to meet her eyes. "I know the risks, Adrian. I'm choosing them anyway. Stop trying to protect me from my own decisions." "I can't lose another person to James." "Then we make sure James loses instead." He searched her face, looking for doubt, for the breaking point, for the moment she'd realized the magnitude of her mistake, found nothing but stubborn determination and something deeper, something neither of them had named yet but both recognized. "You're insane," he whispered. "Probably, but I'm your kind of insane." She managed a smile. "Now tell me the plan. Because Reeves was wrong about one thing. You're not using me as a shield. You're going to use me as bait." Adrian's expression shifted from grief to calculation to something almost like hope. "You figured that out?" "It's the only move that makes sense. James wants someone I care about. Give him a target he can't resist. Draw him out of hiding. End this." "It's incredibly dangerous. Everything about this situation is dangerous. At least this way, we're choosing the terms of engagement." Lena squared her shoulders, channeling every ounce of courage she'd discovered in the weeks since the red dot. "So what's the plan?" Adrian studied her for another moment, then nodded, decision made. "We leak that you're important to me. Make sure James's network picks up on it. Then we put you somewhere public, somewhere he can reach you, somewhere we can control. And when he takes the bait, we take him. Victor's already assembling a team. Marcus has been mapping James's known associates, looking for patterns. We've identified 3 possible locations where he might be operating from." Adrian pulled out his phone, showed her satellite images of buildings, warehouses, estates. "When he moves on you, we track him back to his base. And then we end this, permanently. Lena looked at the images, at the careful planning, at the chess game being played with human lives as pieces. A month ago, she would have run screaming from this reality. Now she was volunteering to be the queen sacrifice that won the game. When do we start? Tonight. There's a gala at the Metropolitan Museum. High profile, maximum exposure. I'll attend with you on my arm. Make sure every camera, every gossip site, every intelligence network sees us together. By morning, James will know you matter to me. And then? Then we wait for him to make his move. And when he does, we're ready. The plan was elegant in its simplicity and terrifying in its execution. But Lena had long since passed the point of reasonable fear. She'd crossed into territory where the only way out was through. Okay, she said, let's give James Calloway a show he can't ignore. The Metropolitan Museum Gala was a universe away from the Carlyle's refined dining room. This was wealth and power concentrated into a single evening. Manhattan's elite gathered under the pretense of supporting the arts, while conducting the real business in hushed corners and private alcoves. Lena descended the penthouse elevator wearing a dress that cost more than her previous annual salary, midnight blue silk that moved like water, diamonds at her throat that were probably real, heels high enough to be weapons. Her hair had been styled by professionals, her makeup applied by an artist who understood the power of highlighting bone structure and emphasizing eyes. She looked like someone who belonged in Adrian's world. She felt like an imposter wearing a disguise. Adrian waited in the lobby, devastating in a custom tuxedo that fit him like armor. When he saw her, something flickered in his expression. Appreciation, possession, and beneath it all, fear for what they were about to do. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. "I look like bait. You look like someone worth starting a war over, which, unfortunately, is exactly what we need." He offered his arm. "Ready?" "No, but let's do this anyway." The SUV delivered them to the museum's entrance, where photographers and reporters created a gauntlet of flashing lights and shouted questions. Adrian guided her through it with practiced ease, his hand at the small of her back, his body angled protectively even as he smiled for the cameras. Inside, the gala was a carefully orchestrated spectacle. Chamber music floated over conversation, champagne flowed like water, and everyone who mattered in New York had turned out to see and be seen. "There," Adrian murmured, nodding toward a distinguished couple near the modern art wing. Senator Moreland and her husband, one of the three suspects. Lena studied the woman who might have ordered Adrian's death. Mid-60s, elegant in the way that came from generations of privilege, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. She was laughing at something her companion said, champagne glass tilted just so, the picture of refined power. "She looks harmless," Lena whispered. "The most dangerous people always do." Adrian steered them toward the bar. "Let's make sure she sees us together, sees you matter." They moved through the crowd like dancers following choreography only they knew. Adrian's hand never left her back. His attention never strayed from her, his body language broadcasting possession and protection in equal measure. They were playing for an audience of killers and spies, and every gesture had to sell the story that Lena Brooks was Adrian Voss's weakness. The terrifying part was how little they had to act. "Mr. Voss." Senator Moreland materialized beside them, her smile sharp as broken glass. "How unexpected to see you at a cultural event. I thought your interests ran more toward acquisitions than art." "Senator." Adrian's tone was perfectly courteous, perfectly cold. "I appreciate beauty in all its forms. Speaking of which, may I introduce Lena Brooks?" Moreland's eyes raked over Lena with the precision of someone cataloging weapons. "Charming! Another new companion. You do go through them quickly." "Lena is special," Adrian said, and the way he said it made Lena's breath catch. "Not a companion, a partner." "How modern." Moreland's smile didn't waver. "I hope she knows what she's getting into, associating with a man of your reputation." "I know exactly what I'm getting into," Lena heard herself say, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. "And I choose it." Something flickered in Moreland's expression, surprise perhaps, or recalculation. How refreshingly direct. Most people in Adrian's orbit learned to speak in euphemisms. She raised her champagne glass in mock salute. "Enjoy the evening, Ms. Brooks. I suspect you'll find it quite memorable." She glided away, leaving implications hanging in the air like poison. "Well," Adrian said quietly, "if she didn't know you mattered before, she does now. Was that a threat?" In Moreland's world, everything is a threat. The question is whether she'll act on it or just file the information away. He guided Lena toward the Egyptian wing, away from the crowd. "We've planted the seed. Now we water it." The rest of the evening was a calculated performance. They danced, Adrian's hand firm at her waist, their bodies moving in perfect synchronization to music neither of them heard. They spoke with donors and collectors and power brokers, Adrian introducing Lena not as decoration but as equal, his partner, someone whose opinion mattered. And through it all, cameras clicked. Social media lit up. The gossip networks that fed intelligence agencies and criminal organizations alike began buzzing with a single question. Who was the woman who'd captured Adrian Voss's attention? By the time they left the gala, Lena's face was attached to a dozen articles speculating about Adrian's mysterious new partner. Her name was trending on 3 platforms. And somewhere in the shadows, James Calloway was watching, calculating, planning his next move. The drive back to the penthouse was quiet, both of them coming down from the adrenaline high of performance. But when they reached the apartment, Victor was waiting with news that shattered the silence. "We got a hit," he said without preamble. "One of James's old associates reached out through a back channel, wants to meet, says he has information about James's location." Adrian's entire demeanor shifted, predator instincts snapping into focus. "When?" "Tomorrow night. Abandoned shipping yard in Newark. He's demanding you come alone." "It's a trap," Lena said immediately. "Obviously," Victor agreed. "The question is whether it's a trap worth walking into." Adrian was already moving, his mind racing through scenarios and contingencies. "James knows we're looking for him. Knows we'd investigate any lead, no matter how suspicious. This could be his way of drawing us out while he moves on another target. Or it could be legitimate," Victor countered. "This associate, Marcus Kane, he and James had a falling out 6 months ago. Money dispute. He might actually want revenge. Or James is using him as bait to see if we're desperate enough to bite." Adrian turned to Lena. "Either way, it's an opportunity. But the timing is suspicious, right after we made our move at the gala." Lena's mind worked through the angles, the patterns, the game within the game. "He's testing us, seeing if we'll split our focus. You chase the lead in Newark while he moves on me here." "Which means we don't take the bait," Adrian said. "We stay together, stay fortified, and wait for his real move." "Or," Lena said slowly, an idea forming, "we use it to our advantage. Make him think his plan is working while we set our own trap." Both men looked at her with renewed attention. "Explain," Adrian commanded. "You go to Newark. Make a show of going alone, of being desperate enough to walk into an obvious trap. But you're not actually alone. Victor and Marcus have teams positioned, watching, ready to move. Meanwhile, I stay here, apparently vulnerable, apparently the undefended target." Lena's heart hammered, but her voice stayed level. "When James sends someone for me, we capture them, interrogate them, find out where James is actually hiding. You're talking about using yourself as bait again." "I'm talking about ending this before 9 more attempts get someone killed." She held Adrian's gaze. "This is what we planned. Public display, leak my importance, draw him out. We're just accelerating the timeline." Adrian looked at Victor. "Thoughts?" "It's risky. If James sends a full team instead of a single operative, we might not be able to contain the situation before Ms. Brooks is compromised. So we prepare for a full team. Chen can position security throughout the building. You set up countermeasures. We turn this penthouse into a kill box with me as the lure." Lena surprised herself with how calmly she was discussing her own potential kidnapping and murder. "It's the best chance we'll get to force James's hand." Adrian was silent for a long moment, conflict warring across his features. Protection versus pragmatism, fear versus necessity. Finally, he nodded. "We do it your way, but with modifications." He pulled out his phone, started making calls. "Chen, I need the building locked down. Full security protocol. Victor, assemble your best team. People who can blend, who won't spook James's people if they're watching. And get Marcus Kane to agree to the Newark meeting. But we position assets to grab whoever shows up. Plans crystallized with military precision, teams assembled, weapons checked, communication protocols established. By the time dawn broke over Manhattan, they'd transformed Lena's planned vulnerability into an ambush waiting to spring. Last chance to back out, Adrian said as the final preparations fell into place. They stood in the penthouse bedroom, the city waking beyond the windows, both of them running on adrenaline and fear and stubborn determination. Not a chance. Lena checked the small panic button Victor had given her, a device that would summon the entire security team with a single press. I'm seeing this through. Adrian pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her with a desperation that spoke louder than words. If anything happens to you, it won't. We've planned for everything. No plan survives contact with the enemy, you know that. Then we adapt, together. She pulled back enough to look at him, to memorize the steel-gray eyes and sharp features and the vulnerability he only showed her. Adrian, I'm not Sarah. I'm not going to be the weapon James uses against you. I'm going to be the weapon that ends him. He kissed her then, fierce and desperate and full of everything they hadn't said, everything they might never get the chance to say. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, both were terrified, both were committed to seeing this through. Tonight, Adrian said. One way or another, this ends tonight. One way or another, Lena agreed. He left for Newark with Victor, the SUV disappearing into traffic, leaving Lena alone in the penthouse with Chen and 4 other security personnel positioned throughout the building. Invisible, but present. Ready. The hours crawled past like wounded things. Lena tried to read, to watch television, to do anything except imagine all the ways this could go catastrophically wrong. Her phone buzzed periodically with updates. Adrian had reached Newark, the meeting location was under surveillance, no sign of James's people yet. And then, at 8 p.m., the power went out. Not just in the penthouse, the entire building, plunged into darkness. Lena's hand found the panic button, squeezed. Somewhere, alarms were triggering. Chen and his team were moving. But in the seconds before emergency lighting kicked on, she heard it. The elevator. Moving. Coming up. Someone had bypassed the security, the locks, the fail-safes. Someone was coming for her, and they were doing it in the dark because darkness was where predators thrived. Lena moved away from the windows, pressed herself against a wall, tried to remember Victor's training. Stay calm. Control your breathing. Don't freeze. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime that sounded obscenely cheerful. Footsteps. Multiple people. Moving with tactical precision through the darkness. Miss Brooks? A voice, male, unfamiliar, carrying the flat affect of someone who'd done this many times before. We're not here to hurt you, just to have a conversation. Lena said nothing, kept her breathing quiet. Heard Chen and his team moving through the building, searching, coordinating. James Calloway sends his regards, the voice continued. He's very interested in meeting Adrian Voss's new partner. Very interested in understanding what makes you worth starting this war over. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness. Lena pressed harder against the wall, making herself small, invisible, the skills she'd perfected over years of being unseen, suddenly valuable in ways she'd never imagined. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, Ms. Brooks. Easy way, you come with us quietly. Hard way, we drag you out unconscious. Either works. The sound of a gun being cocked. Professional, patient, deadly. And then Chen's voice, calm and cold. Drop your weapons. You're surrounded. The room exploded into chaos. Gunfire, shouting, the crash of furniture. Lena dropped to the floor, covered her head, tried to become a target too small to hit. Flashlight beams crisscrossed the darkness like searchlights, strobing across scenes of violence too fast to process. Someone grabbed her arm. She screamed, kicked, fought with everything she had. The grip tightened, yanked her upright. It's me! Chen's voice, urgent. We need to move, now. He dragged her toward the emergency stairs, their feet pounding on concrete, more gunfire echoing behind them. They'd made it down 3 floors when Chen's phone buzzed. He answered without stopping. Status, Adrian's voice tight with controlled panic. The Newark meeting was a decoy. No one showed. Lena, under attack, Chen confirmed, moving her to secure location now. I'm on my way, 20 minutes out. Make it 10. Chen ended the call, pushed Lena through a door into a maintenance corridor. There's a safe room in the sub-basement. Reinforced steel, independent power supply. You'll be secure there until Mr. Voss arrives. What about you? I'm going back to neutralize the threat. He pressed a keycard into her hand. Straight down these stairs, third door on the left. Lock yourself in and don't open it for anyone except Mr. Voss or me. Chen, go. He was already moving back toward the fighting, toward the chaos, leaving her alone in the industrial corridor. Lena ran. Down the stairs, her heels abandoned somewhere in the panic, her dress torn, her carefully styled hair falling into her face. The maintenance corridor was a maze of pipes and concrete, lit by emergency lighting that cast everything in sickly yellow. Third door on the left. She found it, used Chen's keycard, stumbled into the safe room. It was exactly what he'd described. Reinforced steel walls, a single cot, bottles of water, a landline phone. She locked the door behind her, engaged the deadbolt, and for the first time since the power had gone out, allowed herself to breathe. The phone rang. Lena stared at it. No one should know she was here, no one except Chen, and she picked it up. Hello, Lena. James Calloway's voice was smooth, cultured, absolutely certain. I've been very eager to meet you. Her blood turned to ice. How did I know you'd run to the safe room? Because that's what Adrian trained you to do. He's predictable that way, always thinking he can protect people by locking them away. A soft laugh. It never works. You'd think he'd have learned that with Sarah. You're a monster. I'm a businessman who understands leverage, and right now you're the best leverage I've ever had against Adrian Voss. Keys jingled on his end of the line. That safe room you're in? I helped design it. I know exactly how to open it. The question is whether you come out willingly or I come in and collect you. Lena looked around the steel box that had become a trap. No other exits, no weapons. No way out except through the door James Calloway could apparently open at will. What do you want? She asked, buying time, trying to think. I want Adrian to understand what it feels like to lose everything, to watch someone he cares about suffer and be powerless to stop it. The same thing he made me feel when he stole my company, my future, my purpose. Bitterness corroded James's cultured tone. We built Voss Capital together. It was supposed to be ours, but Adrian got scared, got moral, decided there were lines we shouldn't cross. So he bought me out like I was some employee he could discard. He paid you $30 million. He paid me to disappear, to accept that my vision, my ambition, my partnership meant nothing compared to his precious principles. The bitterness sharpened into rage. So now I'm going to take everything from him the way he took everything from me. Starting with you. The landline went dead. Lena heard the lock mechanism engaging, watched in horror as the deadbolt she'd engaged slowly retracted, overridden by whatever master controls James had installed when the safe room was built. The door swung open. James Calloway stood in the corridor, flanked by two men with guns. He was handsome in the way his photograph had suggested, sharp features, cold blue eyes, expensive suit. But there was something broken behind the polish, something that had curdled into obsession. Hello, Lena, he said pleasantly. Let's go meet your future. Part 5. Lưu ý. Viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện. Pha hội thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước, không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch. Sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần. Duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ. Phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc. Kể theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man. Phần 5 giải quyết hết vấn đề và kết thúc trọn vẹn câu chuyện. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document. Chi dần bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí, không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật. Không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. Show more to 1038. Part 5. Lena didn't move. Every muscle in her body screamed at her to run, to fight, to do anything except stand there while James Calloway smiled at her like she was a prize he'd already won. But there was nowhere to run, and fighting two armed men would only get her killed faster. "Smart girl," James said, reading her stillness as surrender. Adrian always did have good taste, even if his judgment was catastrophically flawed in every other regard. "He's going to kill you for this," Lena said quietly. "Is he?" James stepped into the safe room, his movements casual, unhurried. "Because from where I'm standing, I've just captured his weakness. And when he arrives, and he will arrive racing to save you like the predictable hero he pretends to be, I'll have him exactly where I want him." Which is? Broken, begging, willing to trade anything to keep you alive. James's smile widened. "And then, when he's given me everything I want, I'll kill you both anyway. Because some betrayals don't get forgiven. They get avenged." One of the armed men moved forward with zip ties. Lena's mind raced through options, through the training Victor had given her, through every possible scenario. She could fight, could scream, could... The emergency lighting flickered, went out, plunged them into absolute darkness. In that breath of blackness, Lena moved, not away from the armed man, but toward him, exactly as Victor had taught her. Close the distance. Become too close to shoot. Use their strength against them. She felt his surprise more than saw it, felt his grip on the zip ties loosen for just a second. She drove her knee into where she hoped his groin was. Connected. Heard him grunt, felt him double over. Grabbed the gun from his belt, clumsy, desperate, her hands shaking, and rolled away as the emergency lights kicked back on. The gun felt heavier than she'd expected. More real. She pointed it at James, both hands wrapped around the grip, trying to remember if there was a safety, if it was even loaded, if she could actually pull the trigger. "Don't move," she commanded, her voice steadier than she felt. James looked at her with something that might have been respect. "You're full of surprises. No wonder Adrian is willing to burn his empire for you." "I said don't move." "Or what? You'll shoot me?" James took a step forward. "Have you ever killed anyone, Lena? It's harder than it looks. The noise, the recoil, the blood. It changes you in ways you can't anticipate." "I saved Adrian's life once without hesitation. You think I won't do it again?" Saving is different from killing. Any idiot can act on instinct when someone's in danger. But taking a life intentionally, with premeditation? Another step. That requires something most people don't have. The man she'd kicked was getting up, reaching for his own weapon. The second guard had his gun trained on her. She was surrounded, outgunned, and James knew it. "Last chance," James said softly. "Put down the gun and come quietly. This doesn't have to be violent." "Everything about this is violent." But Lena's hands were shaking now, her finger on the trigger, but unable to squeeze, her body rebelling against the idea of killing in cold blood, even to save herself. James saw her hesitation and smiled. "That's the difference between people like you and people like me. You still believe in lines that shouldn't be crossed. I learned a long time ago that lines are just suggestions." He moved fast, faster than she expected. His hand closed around the gun, twisting it from her grip with practiced ease. She tried to hold on, but he was stronger, trained, and within seconds the weapon was pointed at her instead. "Nice try," he said, "but Adrian should have taught you better before throwing you into the deep end." "He taught me enough." Lena's voice was defiant even as her heart hammered. "Enough to know you're not going to kill me yet. You need me alive for whatever sick game you're playing. Perceptive, yes. You're more valuable breathing, for now." James gestured to his men. "Restrain her. And this time, do it properly." They zip-tied her wrists behind her back, checked for additional weapons, found the panic button Victor had given her and crushed it under a boot heel. Then they marched her out of the safe room, through the maintenance corridors, and into a service elevator that bypassed the building's main security. The whole operation had taken less than 5 minutes. Professional, planned, perfect. They emerged into the parking garage where a black van waited, engine running. James pushed her toward it, his hand firm on her shoulder. "Adrian will find you," Lena said, trying to keep the fear from her voice. "You know he will." "I'm counting on it. That's the entire point." James opened the van's rear doors. "But he won't find you in time to stop what happens next." They loaded her into the van, secured her to a bench seat, and pulled black fabric over her head. The world became darkness and engine noise and the smell of her own fear. The van drove for what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. Lena tried to track turns to memorize the route, but disorientation defeated her attempts. When they finally stopped and pulled off her hood, she found herself in an abandoned warehouse somewhere that could have been anywhere. James had chosen his arena carefully. High ceilings, concrete floors, minimal cover. A single chair sat in the center of the space, illuminated by harsh industrial lighting. Cameras were positioned around the perimeter, their red recording lights blinking like watching eyes. "Welcome to the stage," James said, gesturing expansively. "Everything that happens here will be broadcast directly to Adrian. He gets to watch every moment, every choice, every consequence." "You're insane." "I'm thorough. There's a difference." He guided her to the chair, secured her to it with more zip ties. "You see, just killing Adrian wouldn't be enough. Sarah's death hurt him, but it didn't break him. He rebuilt, moved on, got stronger. I can't allow that to happen again. So what's your plan? Torture me on camera until he surrenders?" "Nothing so crude. I'm going to give him a choice." James pulled up a second chair, sat facing her, close enough that she could see the absolute conviction in his cold eyes. $10 million and his complete withdrawal from the business world. Every asset sold, every connection severed, everything he built turned to ash. In exchange, you go free. He'll never agree to that. Won't he? He paid me $30 million just to end our partnership. How much do you think he'll pay to keep you alive? James leaned back, supremely confident. And here's the beautiful part. Even if he agrees, even if he gives me everything, I still win. Because watching him choose between you and his empire will destroy him either way. If he picks the empire, you die, and he lives with that guilt forever. If he picks you, he loses everything that defines him and eventually grows to resent you for it. You've thought this through. I've had 2 years to think about nothing else. Bitterness crept back into his voice. 2 years of watching Adrian thrive while I rotted in exile. 2 years of planning exactly how to make him understand what he took from me. Lena studied him, this broken man twisted by obsession and rage. Part of her wanted to hate him. Part of her almost understood him. Losing everything you'd built, being cast out by the person you'd trusted most. She could imagine how that might poison someone. But understanding didn't mean forgiving. "You could have rebuilt," she said quietly. "You had $30 million. You could have started over, created something new, moved on." "I didn't want something new. I wanted what was mine." James stood abruptly, paced. Voss Capital was my vision as much as Adrian's. We built it together from nothing, and he stole it because he suddenly developed a conscience. Because he decided I'd become too ruthless, too willing to do what needed doing. Maybe he was right. He was a coward. The words came out sharp as blades. We were on the edge of something revolutionary. Connections to every major power player in 3 continents. The ability to move markets with a phone call, real power. But Adrian got squeamish when I suggested we leverage that power fully, started making moral calculations about whose money we could take and whose we couldn't. "And you killed Sarah to punish him for having boundaries?" James's expression went flat. "Sarah was collateral damage, a tool, nothing personal." "Nothing personal?" Rage flared through Lena's fear. "You tortured her for 3 days. Made her brother pull the trigger. That's not collateral damage, that's sadism. That's leverage." James moved closer, his face inches from hers. "And you're about to learn exactly how effective it is. Because in about 10 minutes, Adrian will get the live feed of this conversation. He'll see you tied to that chair, and he'll be faced with the same choice I gave him in Prague, his empire or someone he cares about. And if he doesn't care about me as much as you think, then you die, and I move to the next person on his list. His employees, his associates, everyone he's ever shown kindness to. I'll systematically destroy every connection he has until he's alone and broken." James checked his watch. "But I don't think it'll come to that. I've been watching you two, the way he looks at you, the way he touches you. This isn't like his other relationships. This is real, which makes it the perfect weapon." One of James's men approached, handed him a tablet. He glanced at it, smiled. "Perfect timing. Adrian just arrived at your building. Chen's team is still mopping up my distraction force. He's going to find you gone and the panic button destroyed, and he's going to lose his mind. James tapped the tablet, activating the cameras. Let's give him something to really panic about. The red recording lights intensified. Lena was suddenly hyper-aware of her appearance. Torn dress, disheveled hair, zip ties cutting into her wrists, fear probably written across her face. "Hello, Adrian," James said to the cameras. "I assume you've discovered your new partner is missing. Allow me to ease your mind. She's alive. For now. And she'll stay alive as long as you're willing to meet my terms." He outlined his demands with clinical precision. $10 million. Complete dissolution of Voss Capital. Public announcement that Adrian Voss was retiring from business permanently, all within 12 hours. "If you agree, I'll release Lena unharmed. You have my word as your former partner." James's smile was cruel. "If you refuse, well, you remember what happened last time you chose your empire over someone you loved. I'll give you 6 hours to decide. After that, every hour you delay, she loses a finger. After all 10 are gone, we get creative." He ended the feed. Lena fought to keep her breathing steady, to not give him the satisfaction of seeing her completely break. "You won't get away with this." "I don't need to get away with it. I just need to destroy him." James stood, gestured to his men. "Watch her. No one touches her until we hear from Adrian. I want her pristine for the next broadcast." He walked away, leaving Lena alone with armed guards and spiraling fear. The minutes crawled past like bleeding hours. Lena tried to think, to plan, to find some angle of escape, but she was secured to a chair in the middle of an empty warehouse, surrounded by men with guns, and the only person who could save her was exactly who James wanted to lure into a trap. She thought about her life before the red dot. The invisible existence, the safe routine, the careful avoidance of anything that might complicate her world. That life seemed impossibly distant now, like a story about someone else entirely. She thought about Adrian, about steel-gray eyes and the vulnerability he only showed her, about the way he'd looked at her in the penthouse before leaving for Newark, like she was something precious he was terrified of losing. She thought about the choice he was facing, his empire or her life, everything he'd built or the woman who'd stumbled into his world by accident and changed it irrevocably. And she realized with sudden crystal clarity that there was only one way this could end that didn't destroy him. She had to save herself. The zip ties around her wrists were tight but not impossible. Victor had shown her this during their training sessions, how to work against plastic restraints, how to use body weight and pressure points to create space. It would take time, would leave her wrists raw and bleeding, but it was possible. Lena started working. She shifted in the chair, testing the zip ties' limits, flexed her wrists against them, looking for give. The plastic cut into her skin, but she ignored the pain, focused only on creating millimeters of space. The guards weren't paying close attention. They were watching the warehouse entrance, anticipating Adrian's arrival, not expecting their captive to be anything other than a helpless victim. That was their mistake. Lena worked the zip ties slowly, methodically, using every technique Victor had taught her. Rock the hands back and forth. Create friction. Use sweat and blood as lubricant. Don't rush. Don't make noise. Time became meaningless. Her wrists screamed. Blood made the plastic slippery. But slowly, impossibly, she felt the zip tie loosening. She was so focused on her hands that she almost missed the sound. Footsteps. Outside the warehouse, multiple people moving with tactical precision. Adrian had found her. James heard it too. He emerged from wherever he'd been waiting, alert and ready. "Positions," he commanded his men. "Remember, we want him alive for the finale." The warehouse doors exploded inward. Adrian came through like a force of nature, Victor and Chen flanking him, all three armed and moving with lethal purpose. Behind them, more security personnel, at least a dozen, all professional, all ready for war. "James!" Adrian's voice cut through the warehouse like a blade. "Let her go. This is between us." It stopped being just between us the moment you betrayed our partnership. James had positioned himself behind Lena's chair, using her as a shield. "Drop your weapons, or I put a bullet in her head right now." Adrian froze. So did his entire team. The standoff crystallized, predator and predator staring across concrete and shadows, each calculating odds and outcomes. "You wanted my empire," Adrian said, his voice steady despite the gun to Lena's head. "Fine. I'll give it to you. Every asset, every connection, everything. Just let her go." "How touching. You're actually willing to trade it all for her." James laughed, the sound bitter and broken. That's the difference between us, Adrian. You let people make you weak. I eliminated that weakness years ago. Then why are you doing this? If I'm so weak, if you've already won, why the torture? Why the drama? Because destroying you isn't enough. The words tore out of James like shrapnel. You have to understand what you did. Have to feel what I felt when you ripped away everything we built together. While James was focused on Adrian, Lena made her move. The zip tie finally gave, snapping free of her right wrist. She kept her hands behind her back, hiding the freedom, waiting for her moment. I understand more than you think, Adrian was saying, taking a step forward. I understand that I hurt you, that I handled the dissolution badly, that I should have found a better way to end our partnership. There was no better way. You wanted me gone, so you paid me off like I was disposable. I wanted us both to survive. The path we were on, James, it was going to get us both killed or imprisoned. I pulled back to save us. You pulled back to save yourself. Left me holding the bag on agreements I'd made, promises I'd given. Do you know what happens when you betray people at that level of power? They don't just move on. They come after you. Another step forward. Is that what happened? Someone came after you? Konstantin Volkov? You remember him? The Russian we'd agreed to partner with on the Prague deal? I promised him access to our European network. You decided we were getting into bed with criminals and backed out. Guess who Volkov blamed? Adrian's expression shifted, understanding dawning. He's been hunting you. For 2 years, I've been running from a man who wants me dead because you got morality. James's gun pressed harder against Lena's temple. So yes, I want you to feel that. Want you to know what it's like to lose everything. Then shoot me, Adrian said simply. Let Lena go and put a bullet in my head. That's what you really want, isn't it? Not my empire. Not my money. Me dead. I want you broken first. Too late. I've been broken since Sarah died. Since I realized that caring about anyone in this world just gives people weapons to use against me. Adrian's voice dropped lower, intimate and dangerous. But I kept making the same mistake, kept letting people in, kept believing I could protect them. And now you've got Lena and I'm facing the same choice I faced in Prague. And what are you going to choose? Adrian looked at Lena, really looked. She saw regret in his eyes, and love, and goodbye. I choose her, he said. Always her. He dropped his gun. The sound of it hitting concrete echoed through the warehouse. His team started to protest, but he silenced them with a gesture. Victor looked ready to murder someone. Chen's jaw was locked tight. There, Adrian said. I'm unarmed. Helpless. You win, James. Now let her go. James hesitated, confused by the easy surrender. You think I'm that stupid? That I'll just release her because you dropped your weapon? I think you want me to suffer more than you want her dead. So take me, make your trade, her freedom for my life. Adrian, no, Lena started to say, but James cut her off. Quiet. His attention was fully on Adrian now, the gun drifting slightly away from Lena's head. You'd really trade yourself? Without hesitation. It was the opening Lena needed. She drove her elbow back into James's ribs with everything she had, felt his grip on the gun loosen as pain shocked through him, threw herself forward out of the chair, hitting the ground hard, rolling away from his line of fire. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Adrian's team opened fire. James's men returned it. Bullets ricocheted off concrete and metal. Someone screamed. Lena scrambled toward cover, her hands finally free, her dress in tatters. Adrian was already moving toward her, laying down covering fire, his face a mask of controlled fury. Get down! He shouted. She dropped behind a support pillar as bullets chewed into the concrete above her head. The firefight was brutal, professional, the kind of violence that left bodies and questions. Through the chaos, she saw James running for a back exit, abandoning his men, choosing survival over revenge. Adrian saw him too and made a split-second decision. Victor, get Lena out, he commanded, then took off after James. Adrian, wait. But he was already gone, disappeared into the warehouse's shadows, chasing his former partner and all the ghosts that came with him. Victor materialized beside her, hauled her to her feet. We need to move, now. Not without Adrian. He gave me an order. I'm following it. Victor was already propelling her toward the entrance, Chen covering their exit. The firefight was winding down. James's men either dead or fleeing, but the danger was far from over. They made it outside to where a convoy of SUVs waited. Victor pushed Lena into one, climbed in after her. "Where's Adrian?" she demanded. Ending this. Victor's expression was grim. One way or another. Somewhere in the warehouse, Adrian Voss was hunting the man who'd destroyed his last relationship and was trying to destroy this one. Two former partners, two men who'd built an empire together, now locked in a final confrontation that could only end one way. Lena's hands were shaking. Her wrists bled from the zip ties. Her entire body was a collection of bruises and fear and adrenaline crash. But she wasn't helpless anymore, wasn't waiting to be saved. "Turn around," she told Victor. "Absolutely not. He's going after James alone. He's going to get himself killed trying to protect me from ever being targeted again." Lena met Victor's eyes. "Turn around." Something in her tone, in her expression, made Victor reconsider. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded to the driver. "Take us back. West entrance. Stay mobile." The SUV swung around, headed back toward the warehouse. Lena could hear sporadic gunfire still echoing from inside, could see smoke rising from blown-out windows. "If we're doing this, you follow my lead," Victor said, handing her a gun. "Know how to use this?" "Point and shoot, right?" "Close enough." He checked his own weapon, his expression settling into combat mode. "Stay behind me. Don't be a hero. If things go wrong, you run." "I'm done running." Done. They entered through a side door, moving through corridors that smelled of gunpowder and fear. The main warehouse floor had gone quiet, the firefight over, bodies sprawled in positions that suggested violence had been swift and absolute. And in the center of it all, near where Lena had been tied to the chair, Adrian and James faced each other. Both were bleeding. Both had lost their guns somewhere in the chase. Now it was just two men and whatever rage and grief and betrayal had been festering for years. "You can't win this, James," Adrian was saying, his voice raw. "Your men are dead or gone. Volkov's people will find you eventually. This is over." "It's not over until one of us is dead." James was favoring his left side, blood seeping through his shirt. That was always how this had to end. It didn't have to be this way. We could have found another solution, could have worked together to deal with Volkov, to fix the mess we both made. There is no we anymore. You destroyed that when you chose morality over partnership. James lunged, threw a punch that Adrian barely blocked. They grappled, two men who knew each other's moves, each fighting not just for survival but for vindication. Lena watched from the shadows, Victor holding her back, her finger on the gun's trigger. She could end this, could shoot James and eliminate the threat forever. But something stopped her, some understanding that this wasn't her fight to finish. This was between Adrian and his past, between two men who'd built something together and watched it burn. They fought with brutal efficiency, trading blows that would have dropped ordinary men. Adrian's training showed military precision, controlled aggression. But James fought with the desperation of someone who'd already lost everything and had nothing left to fear. "You think saving her makes you different from me?" James gasped between blows. "You think choosing her over your empire makes you noble? You're still the same man, Adrian, still making the same calculations about who lives and who dies. The difference is I'm trying to save people instead of destroying them." "You destroyed me," James's voice cracked. "Everything I was, everything I could have been, you took it all." Adrian caught James's next punch, twisted his arm, drove him to his knees. "I gave you a chance to walk away. You chose revenge instead." "Because there was nothing left to walk away to." James looked up at Adrian with eyes full of broken rage. "So do it. Finish what you started. Prove you're exactly the monster you pretend not to be." Adrian stood over his former partner, his former friend, breathing hard, bleeding, faced with the final choice. End the threat permanently or try to find another way. His hand moved to his belt where a backup gun was holstered. Lena stepped out of the shadows. "Adrian, don't." He looked at her, really saw her. Bleeding wrists, torn dress, eyes that had seen too much but hadn't broken. "Lena, you should be—" "Don't kill him." She moved closer, gun lowered but still in hand. "If you do this, if you cross this line, James wins. He wanted to prove you're a monster. Don't give him that. He tried to kill you, tried to destroy everything I've built. And he failed. Because I'm still alive and you're still you." Lena stood beside Adrian, a united front. "Let the authorities have him. Let him face real consequences instead of becoming another ghost you carry. James laughed bitterly from the floor. How touching. The waitress thinks she can save your soul. She already did, Adrian said quietly. The night she saved my life, she reminded me that some things are worth protecting, worth fighting for, worth being better for. He removed his hand from the gun, stepped back from James, made his choice. Victor, call Agent Reeves, Adrian instructed. Tell her we have a gift for her. Multiple charges, kidnapping, attempted murder, conspiracy. Enough to put James away for life. You think prison will hold me? James spat. You think I won't get out eventually? I think you'll spend the rest of your life watching me rebuild everything you tried to destroy. And every day you're locked away, you'll know that you failed. Adrian's voice was cold, final. That's a better revenge than killing you could ever be. Federal agents arrived within minutes, Agent Reeves among them. She looked at the warehouse carnage, at Lena's bloody wrists, at Adrian standing over his captured enemy, and something like satisfaction flickered across her face. Mr. Voss? Miss Brooks? I see you've been busy. James Calloway, Adrian said, gesturing to the man on the floor. Wanted for kidnapping, attempted murder, and if you dig into his accounts, I suspect you'll find connections to Konstantin Volkov that will interest your organized crime division. Reeves's eyes sharpened. Volkov? James has been running from him for 2 years. He'll trade information for protection, and that information will give you a direct line to one of the most dangerous men in Russian intelligence. You're giving me Volkov? I'm giving you the tools to dismantle his entire network. In exchange, I want immunity for everyone in my organization who cooperated tonight, and I want Lena completely clear of any charges. Reeves studied them both, calculating. Then she nodded. Deal. But Voss? This is the last time. Next situation you're involved in, you're on your own. Understood. They took James away in handcuffs. His earlier bravado collapsed into bitter silence. As they loaded him into a federal vehicle, he looked back at Adrian one last time. This isn't over, he said. Yes, Adrian replied quietly. It is. The warehouse emptied slowly. Federal agents collecting evidence, medics treating the wounded, cleanup crews arriving to handle the aftermath. By the time dawn broke over the city, the chaos had been reduced to yellow crime scene tape and official reports. Adrian and Lena sat in the back of an SUV, both wrapped in shock blankets despite the warm morning, both processing what had just happened. I thought I lost you, Adrian said finally, his voice rough with exhaustion and fear. When I found that safe room empty, when I realized James had you, I know, I was terrified too. Lena's hand found his, their fingers interlacing. But we made it. We're both still here. You saved yourself, broke free, created the opening we needed. He looked at her with something like awe. You're incredible. You know that? I had good teachers. She managed a smile despite everything. And I had something worth fighting for. Lena, I love you. The words came out simply, without drama or hesitation. I don't know when it happened exactly, somewhere between the red dot and right now. But I love you, Adrian Voss. And I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing us. He kissed her then, gentle despite the violence they'd just survived, his hands cupping her face like she was something precious. When they finally broke apart, both were crying. I love you too, he whispered. And I'm done letting fear dictate my choices. Done pushing people away to protect them. If you'll have me, all of me, including the mess and the danger and the complications, I'll have you. She kissed him again. All of you. Whatever comes next, we face it together. The sun rose fully over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day. A new beginning. But Lena knew better than to think the danger was completely over. Adrian's world would always have threats, would always require vigilance and strength and the willingness to make hard choices. The difference was, now she was choosing to be part of that world. Not as a victim, not as someone to be protected, but as a partner, an equal. Someone who'd proven she could stand beside him in the chaos and come out stronger. Months passed before the dust fully settled. James Calloway pleaded guilty to a dozen federal charges in exchange for testimony against Konstantin Volkov. His information led to one of the largest organized crime takedowns in a decade, destroying Volkov's network and eliminating the threat that had been haunting James for years. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who'd tried to destroy Adrian ended up being the key to dismantling one of their mutual enemies. Adrian restructured Voss Capital, bringing in new leadership, establishing clear ethical guidelines, pulling back from the grayest areas of operation. It was still powerful, still profitable, but now it operated with transparency that would have been unthinkable before the red dot. "I'm building something that won't require constant moral calculations," he explained to Lena one evening as they reviewed the new corporate structure. "Something I can be proud of instead of just something I survive." She was building something too. Lena Brooks Security Consulting started small, just her, an office, and a reputation for seeing threats others missed. But it grew quickly. Corporations hired her to audit their security. Private individuals sought her expertise in threat assessment. Within 6 months, she had a team of 5 and a client list that read like a Fortune 500 directory. "You're better at this than I ever was," Adrian admitted, reviewing one of her threat analyses. "You see patterns I miss. Make connections that seem obvious only after you point them out." "I learned from the best." She kissed his cheek. "And I had motivation. After everything with James, I decided I never wanted to feel helpless again. This is how I take back power." They were careful at first, keeping their relationship quiet, maintaining professional distance in public. But gradually, as the immediate danger receded and new patterns established themselves, they stopped hiding. The media had a field day. Adrian Voss and the mysterious woman who'd saved his life, now partners in business and life. The gossip sites couldn't get enough. Financial analysts speculated about the implications. Their competitors looked for angles to exploit. Let them look, Lena thought. She'd faced down assassins and federal agents and a man bent on destroying everything she loved. Media attention was nothing. 1 year after the red dot, Adrian proposed. Not with a grand gesture or public spectacle. Just the two of them in the penthouse, the city spread out below them like a kingdom they'd fought to protect. "I know this hasn't been a normal relationship," he said, the ring box in his hand. "I know I've brought danger and chaos into your life, but I also know that I can't imagine facing any of it without you beside me." "Adrian, let me finish." He smiled. "Lena Brooks, you're the strongest person I've ever met. You saved my life that night at the Carlisle, and you've been saving it ever since, by challenging me, by refusing to let me isolate myself, by choosing to love me despite every rational reason not to. I want to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that choice. Will you marry me?" The ring was beautiful, a simple diamond, elegant without being ostentatious. Perfect. "Yes," Lena said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times, yes." They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony. Just close friends, trusted colleagues, the family they'd built from loyalty instead of blood. Victor served as best man. Chen walked Lena down the aisle since she had no family left to do it. Agent Reeves even sent a card, though she didn't attend. It read, "Congratulations on building something better than what you destroyed. Try to keep it legal." The reception was at the penthouse, the same space where Lena had first stayed after the assassination attempt. But it felt different now, not like a gilded cage, but like home. Their home. "Happy?" Adrian asked, pulling her close for their first dance. "Terrified," Lena admitted. "But yes, happy." "Why terrified?" "Because this is real. Because I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living, building, choosing. And that's more frightening than any assassin." "Welcome to the human condition." He kissed her forehead. "But at least we get to be frightened together." The threats didn't vanish entirely. Adrian's world would always have sharp edges, would always require vigilance, but they faced each new challenge the same way they'd faced James Calloway. Together. As partners. As equals. Lena Brooks Security Consulting grew into one of the most respected firms in the industry. She hired people like her, those who'd survived impossible situations and transformed their trauma into strength, built a team that understood danger intimately and knew how to neutralize it. Adrian's restructured Voss Capital became a model for ethical finance in gray areas, proving that profit and principles didn't have to be mutually exclusive. He consulted for governments, testified before regulatory bodies, used his experience navigating legal boundaries to help others stay on the right side of them. 2 years after the wedding, Lena discovered she was pregnant. The news terrified them both. Bringing a child into their complicated, dangerous world seemed impossibly reckless. But it was also the most hopeful thing either of them had ever done. "We'll protect them," Adrian said, his hand on her growing belly. "Both of us. Whatever it takes. And we'll teach them to protect themselves," Lena added, "to see threats others miss, to choose courage over safety, to save people instead of just surviving." Their daughter was born on a spring morning, healthy and screaming and perfect. They named her Sarah Chen Voss, honoring the woman Adrian had lost and the man who'd helped save them both. Marcus cried when they told him. "She would have loved that," he said quietly. "Loved that her name gets to mean hope instead of just loss." Life settled into new rhythms. Midnight feedings and security consultations and business restructurings and all the beautiful chaos of building something real. The penthouse filled with baby toys and laughter and the mess of living. 5 years after the red dot, Lena stood at the windows of their home, holding Sarah, watching the city wake. Adrian came up behind them, wrapped his arms around them both. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That I was wrong," Lena said softly. "That night at the Carlisle, when I thought my life was ending. It wasn't ending. It was finally beginning. No regrets? So many regrets. But choosing you isn't one of them." She leaned back against him, felt Sarah's small hand grip her finger. "This, us, our family, our life, this is what I was supposed to find. I just had to be brave enough to reach for it." "You're the bravest person I know. I'm the most terrified person you know. I'm just brave enough to keep choosing despite the fear." Sarah squirmed, wanting down, ready to explore. They let her toddle off toward her toys, watched her navigate the world with fearless curiosity. "She's going to be trouble," Adrian observed. "She's going to be amazing." Lena turned in his arms, looked up at the man she'd saved and who'd saved her right back, just like her parents. The red dot that had appeared on Adrian Voss's chest all those years ago had been meant to mark an ending, death, finality. The conclusion of one man's story. Instead, it had marked a beginning of partnership and love and choosing danger when it mattered, of building something stronger than fear, of two people from different worlds who'd found each other in chaos and decided to make it permanent. Somewhere in a federal prison, James Calloway was serving a life sentence, his revenge fantasy reduced to bitter memory. Konstantin Volkov's empire had been dismantled, his threat neutralized. The 9 remaining assassination attempts had been traced and eliminated, the network of hired killers disrupted. The danger was never completely gone, never would be in their world. But Lena and Adrian faced it together, as they faced everything, with courage, with love, with the stubborn determination to build something worth protecting. And if another red dot ever appeared, if another threat emerged from the shadows, they'd face it the same way they'd faced the first one. Together. Always together. The end of one story, the middle of another. The beautiful, terrifying, perfect chaos of choosing life over survival, of choosing love over fear, of choosing, again and again, each other. Lena had entered that restaurant expecting to serve champagne and bisque to people who wouldn't remember her name. She'd left it covered in both, having saved a life and irrevocably changed her own. Best accident she'd ever made. Best choice she'd ever owned. The red dot had promised death but delivered life instead. Fierce, dangerous, real, and more valuable than safety had ever been. And every day since, Lena Brooks Voss woke up grateful for the split-second decision that had shattered her invisible existence and rebuilt it into something extraordinary. She'd saved Adrian Voss that night in the Carlisle, but really, they'd saved each other, and continued saving each other every single day in all the ways that mattered.